The following is a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. To learn more, visit sbceo.org.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today, Chris Ladwig, science teacher at Cabrillo High School. Chris, you've been a program advisor at a very incredible aquarium, one of a kind, at Cabrillo High School for 20 years. Thank you for being here today and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about your teaching, about the aquarium, about the school, about your experience. But let's go back and start at the beginning. Tell us about your growing up, where you were born and raised, about your childhood.
Well, I was born in beautiful downtown Burbank and lived in LA for the first 5 years, and then my parents moved us up to Lompoc. And it was kind of a homecoming of sorts. My mom grew up here, and I'm kind of a lifer. I went through all the Lompoc schools and graduated from Cabrillo High School in 2001. Then I went away to UCLA and had a blast down there. But there's kind of a saying, it seems like everybody comes back to Lompoc eventually. So so I came back and started teaching, and now I'm at Cabrillo. I basically have my dream job.
I love it, I love it. So you went quickly from elementary all the way to Bruinville and then to Lompoc. So let's go back a little bit. Okay. Tell us of the elementary, middle school that you went to in elementary.
Well, I started off, I kind of bounced around a little bit. After getting to Lompoc, I went to Hapgood at first, and then once I got into the GATE program, we were having the GATE program at Los Barros then, so I went to Los Barros for 4th and 5th grade, and had a blast. I had incredible elementary teachers. I distinctly remember 5th grade with Mr. Honeycutt. He would do things like set computers out with tools and just let us take the computers apart. I'm sure we were just ruining them, but you know, that kind of hands-on experience really kind of set the stage. And then I went to Lompoc Valley Middle School for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I was in a really unique situation there because my grandma was my English teacher for 6th grade. So so I definitely kind of ruled the roost there a little bit. You know, I probably got away with more than I should have. But that was where I started to pique my interest in aquariums. My science teacher there, Mr. Kelly, had an aquarium club, and it actually ended up becoming sort of connected with the aquarium at Cabrillo High School. So that just sort of made a logical flow that I was going to go to Cabrillo after LVMS. So yeah, I had a great experience all through Lompoc School District.
That's great. And you went from Cabrillo right into UCLA, and what did you major in?
I studied marine science down there. I was also in the UCLA marching band after being in the band at Cabrillo. And
what did you play?
Trombone.
Excellent.
Of course, yes. And,
of course.
That was an incredible experience. We traveled all over the country with basketball teams and football teams and everything, and definitely got that big city dose that I think I needed. But then, you know, LA is LA, and I was ready to come home, and so, you know, finished up at Chapman with getting my credential and all that.
Lompoc is a wonderful place to come back to, so that's really great. When did you know that you wanted to be a teacher?
Well, that was one of the really unique things about the aquarium at Cabrillo as a student there, because back when I was a student at Cabrillo and now as an advisor, the students really are the teachers there. And so I got a pretty heavy dose of it. Plus, you know, with my grandma as a teacher in 6th grade, I always kind of, you know, I had my nose into it for quite a while. And so at Cabrillo, I got a lesson in, you know, curriculum development and teaching students, basically, as a high school student myself. So, you know, studying marine science, you could kind of go one of two ways. If I went the research route, which seemed intriguing, but, you know, I didn't necessarily want to be kind of isolated, you know, on a research vessel or something. I wanted to give back. I had such an incredible experience, especially in high school. I wanted to do what I could to help other students have a great experience as well.
And how long have you been teaching?
After college, I substituted for a couple years, which is always interesting. But then I was hired on at Vandenberg Middle School for 3 years, and that was a really incredible situation. If the aquarium didn't exist or Cabrillo didn't exist, I'd probably still be at VMS. I love that school and everybody who I worked with there. There I got to develop, just in my second year of teaching, I got to develop an all-new aerospace modeling class, which was kind of another example of project-based learning that we do at the aquarium, just in a different content area. But then after 3 years, a position opened at Cabrillo. I had already, been working there, writing grants for the aquarium and things like that. So I got my foot in the door, and now I've been at Cabrillo for 3 years. So 6 years total now.
And what is your regular teaching assignment? Part of it is with the aquarium, and some of it is outside of the aquarium. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, that's a big challenge with the aquarium advisors is we're all teachers too. We have a full load of classes. I've taught kind of the whole gamut at this point. Biology, honors biology, advanced integrated science class for upperclassmen where we do things like underwater robotics, which is really great. This next year, actually, I'm really excited. We've developed an all-new freshman class for the next generation science standards. And I'm one of the teachers for that we literally started from scratch on that. So I'll be teaching mostly freshmen next year. But I also have a couple classes with the aquarium, so I'll be able to get my dose of the older kids as well.
In your freshman classes, the ones that you just created, what do you imagine your classroom to look like, or activities that will be happening with the students if we walked into your classroom?
Well, the great thing about the next generation science standards, and my department at Cabrillo has really been a leader in the area in implementing the standards. It's all about sort of almost a holistic approach where you're not just teaching the concept. There's also the cross-cutting concepts and the science and engineering practices. So, students are not going to be doing worksheets every single day. It's not going to be drill and kill. It'll be applied knowledge, larger scale projects. Bringing things back like cell city models, things like that where they're applying their knowledge in the right format, of course, but things that may take a little bit longer, things that are going to require the kids to think a little bit more in depth and apply more than just memorizing a bunch of facts, basically. Mm-hmm.
Not just the what, but really the how and the why behind all of that.
Exactly.
And everything's interrelated.
Right, because a lot of that, frankly, is what they're going to use later on. They may not have to remember what a mitochondria does, later on in life, but being able to notice patterns and understand how systems work together, that's really what's going to benefit them.
You took me back to junior high when you said mitochondria. I started wondering what
Yeah.
the example of that is. So you talk about the aquarium. We talk about that a lot. We're really anxious to hear about that some more as well. Can you tell us, to start, can you tell us a bit of the history of the aquarium, how it came to be?
Sure. One of the really incredible things about this program is its longevity. The program started in 1986, give or take, with one student and one aquarium and a teacher just in an extra classroom, and they just did a project. And then that grew to a second tank, and then another exhibit, and then eventually the classroom, filled up. And right around that time, actually, is when I was lucky enough to get to Cabrillo as a student, as a freshman in 1997. And the first 2 years I was there, we were in that tiny classroom still cramped together, but people realized what we were doing was special. By that point, we were giving school tours at lunch, we were maintaining everything at lunch just as a club. And so right around 1998, 1999, we secured the funding for a new facility that broke ground about 2000. And then we built that actually during my junior and senior year. I had perfect timing. And that's the facility we're in now. It's grown to about 7,000 square feet with about 24 exhibits. And around that time also in 2000, 2001, we developed the aquarium class finally. Before that, it was just a club. Kids would just come in at lunch. And looking back, I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we were able to maintain everything and give tours and all that. But now the classes are growing. The first year of the class called Tourism School to Career was took place during my senior year of high school, which again, perfect timing. But that class has now grown to 4 class periods, 2 of which I'll be teaching next year. We also have a Science Quest class in the morning where they do all the feeding. And then next year, we're also adding a new Advanced Aquarium Operations class for the kids who really want to dive in more deeply to the operations of the facility. So it's just been growing, and I think a huge credit to that too has been the transition between advisors. Sometimes with a big program like that, there's one champion for it, and then they retire, they move on, and then the program just fizzles out. But in this case, our founder, Dave Long, when he retired, it was a special enough program that people couldn't help but be attracted to it. And so our new director, Greg Eisen, has done an amazing job. And then the two other advisors, Michelle Poquette and Jennifer Mason, help support us. And still, I mean, the four of us alone, there's no way we could do it at all. You know, it comes down to the students, really.
Mm-hmm. You talk about timing being perfect. You talk about collaboration and teamwork, making it happen, and the students' involvement. Mm-hmm. So the aquarium is open to the public. Is that mm-hmm. right?
Yeah, we're primarily open to the public during the school year. We have monthly open houses that we'll release the next schedule on our Facebook page in August. But the bulk of our visitors are school tours. The Lompoc Unified School District has been amazingly supportive, and they fund field trips for every 5th grade class in the district to come. And then also we get grades from, we have preschool groups come all the way up to even Allen Hancock brings their marine science students over sometimes. So we have about 7,000 visitors a year now. And the vast majority of it is school tours. Our calendar fills up almost instantly. And we do tours every Tuesday and Thursday, and we can have up to 4 classes a day. So our students have gotten really good at not just giving tours, but also developing curriculum. So it's not just this is this fish, this is that fish, but giving lessons and running labs. We have in the spring, we have a Sequest program where we bring 4th grade classes in for the entire day. They arrive about 9:30 in the morning and they're there till about 1:30 in the afternoon, where they get a tour of the aquarium, but then they also get different labs. They'll do arts and craft, and it's all centered around one common theme. And the themes change each year, so the teachers are always really excited to bring their kids.
Such a dynamic place. You had said there are about 7,000 visitors annually. I think you said it was about 7,000 square feet. And so 7 must be a lucky number there. Yeah. I'm curious then, what are some of the most popular exhibits, or even can you share some of the exhibits at all, whether they're popular or not? Because some of our viewers may not have ever visited before.
Sure. It's really hard to describe the aquarium. Every time we describe it and then people come, they always comment that, it's so much bigger than I could have ever imagined. You know, there's nothing like it in a public school setting. There's nothing like it at some colleges. But a few years ago, our facility turned 10 years old, and we realized, things were maybe getting a little tired. So we kicked off a mini expansion project where we wrote some grants and got some funding for new exhibits. And the centerpiece of that was our shark exhibit. Our sharks had outgrown their current tub that they were in. So we expanded it to a 750-gallon oval tank so they can orbit around and be much happier. So that's definitely a centerpiece. We specifically designed it to be really low to the ground, so even the youngest visitors can walk up to it and they're face-to-face with the shark, which is really neat to see. In fact, that exhibit, right after we put the sharks in, they got happy enough that they've started to reproduce. Like crazy.
Wow.
We have, our horn sharks have started breeding to the point where we now have 12 fertilized horn shark eggs, which is just a testament to the care our students give to the animals, that they're that comfortable, because sharks breeding in captivity, in that case, it's usually not a terribly common thing. And so we've even donated eggs to UCSB and things like that. So that's been kind of an exciting development. And we've also upgraded some other tanks, like our warm water reef, which is always, the kids always love. They get to see Nemo and Dory in there and all that. And then in one of the adjacent classrooms, we developed basically just from our own designs, these wet labs, where they're trays, shallow trays, and there's a line above where water spills down into the tray. So we can put any tank in there we want, and the water just goes into it, and it's part of the system then. Because one of our big problems before was students setting up projects. It would take forever, because they would have to do all the plumbing, they'd have to get the pumps and all the system and everything, whereas now with this wet lab, we can just drop the tank in, and the system's ready to rock and roll right there. And we just did that this last week with a new jellyfish exhibit. So there's lots of stuff. I could go on and on, but you really have to see it to fully comprehend the scope.
It sounds like it, and I know we all appreciate you giving us an opportunity to visualize what it would look like if we were to walk in, but it sounds like it's just going to be spectacular once we do visit. Earlier today, you talked about project-based learning. You really clearly have a lot of thought around curriculum and how to set up great learning for students and their experiences. But project-based learning is something that may not be familiar to all of our viewers. Can you explain what that means? And then what does that not only mean as a definition, but what does it mean as a learner?
Sure. At the aquarium, we've kind of one of our core tenets for decades now has been cross-curricular project-based learning. And the cross-curricular aspect really makes it richer as well. But I see project-based learning as just problem solving, but on a larger scale than just answering one question or, 2 + 2 = what. But by presenting kids with problems, and in the aquarium, the problems can literally be life and death. I mean, we have to keep these animals alive. And so it's not a short-term activity. It's got to be something fairly in-depth where the students can gain some ownership in the activity. If it's strictly top-down, you're basically telling them, do this, then this, then this. At some point, they just become robots, and they're just going to do that and assume that you have all the right answers. But in a project, there really isn't any one right answer necessarily in project-based learning. There's certainly some goals you want them to hit. There's some benchmarks you want to get to. But the way they go about that could be any different number of pathways. The aquarium especially, we get students of all walks of life. We get the AP kids, but we also get the kids who, they tell us the only reason they come to school is because of the aquarium. They get that sense of ownership there that they just don't get necessarily in other classes where they're just working towards a grade. In a project-based learning environment, ideally, their eye is not on the grade. It's accomplishing the task. And with the cross-curricular aspect of the aquarium, it's not just keeping animals alive or solving a science problem or something like that, but we have journalism activities there. We produce our own newsletter. We have a multimedia department. There's all these different aspects. There's curriculum development. We've given our kids more training on next generation science standards than I think some schools have gotten for their teachers. So getting all those different aspects and really allowing students to find their niche. We don't just crank out marine biologists at the aquarium. We crank out just lifelong learners that have the ability to solve problems.
Sounds like they're really rolling up their sleeves and getting into all of aspects of the learning. It's a project, but it's also a lot of thinking and collaborating and really deeply looking at what the problem is to solve. Are the students part of the operations of the aquarium as well? I know that the operations of the aquarium takes a lot of management and oversight. Do they participate in that as well?
The students essentially the operations of the aquarium. Like I said, Lompoc Unified School District has been incredibly supportive. They, support us in terms of utilities and things like that. But, during the mini expansion, when we had the new tanks come in, the kids did the plumbing on it. The kids do all the maintenance on pumps. The kids do pretty much everything. Probably the only thing they don't do is the electrical, I would say. But even then, when someone is doing the electrical, we make sure the kids are there. They're learning and they're watching. One of my favorite memories as a student at the aquarium was, since I was there when we built the new building, was looking over the shoulder of the people installing all the new systems and all the filtration and everything. And that really equips you later on to be comfortable doing it yourself. So yeah, the students pretty much have to do everything. And it's a balance. I mean, they're teenagers, so we always have to keep that in the back of our minds. But there's no way the program could exist, with just the 4 advisors. Frankly.
And what about fundraising, sustainability? Are students part of that as well, or is it mostly community members? How does that work?
Well, the motto of the aquarium is a partnership with the earth, and it's really been supported on partnerships since day one. Really, that first tank and that first room was sponsored by a local doctor's office, and so those partnerships have really been key in helping us to not have to worry about fundraising. I know one thing our founder Dave Long would always say is, don't worry about the money. Don't let that limit your vision. And so we try not to. We've had tremendous in-kind donors. Mike Del Preti at Aquacraft donates all of our salt, which is a tremendous expense. We make our own salt water almost every day at the aquarium. And he's been tremendously supportive. We've had other sponsors. Coral Life sponsored our theater when we built it. And we do have a dedicated patron program where it's primarily alumni who can give donations either by mail, or we have a PayPal link on our Facebook page. Try to make it as easy as possible. And they help, that helps cover some of the operating expenses. But really it's the in-kind donations that seem to help the most. And we do write grants for capital improvement projects. You know, when we bought the new exhibits, we wrote grants. The Coastal Resource Enhancement Fund has been really helpful, Wood Clysens Foundation, and some different groups like that. But for day-to-day activities, you know, we rely on those in-kind donors, and the patron program seems to really be supportive because the kids are so busy, we don't want them to have to be worrying about that kind of stuff. We want them to sort of treat it as a business, and they're there to do a job, and that's pretty much it.
Community partners are so important. They really do impact our schools and support our students in so many ways. And clearly teachers do, and incredible teaching and thoughtfulness as you prepare for your students. And I know that you've impacted very specific student lives, broadly as well as specifically. If we turn the tables, would you say that there's a student that has, that's in your memory has really impacted you, or an aha moment that a student has shared with you that has impacted you as a teacher?
Yeah, in the aquarium, the students, sometimes we develop a much deeper connection with some of the students because, you know, we're with them in good times and bad. You know, there may be something happening where we call them in, you know, on a Sunday or something, and they're there, you know, right next to us, solving some type of major problem. And but yeah, they're students, like I had said, that, you know, they say the only reason they come to school is for the aquarium. I've had students this year say the aquarium is why they graduated. Otherwise, they would have just dropped out. The specific thing, I love the students. There's still some, I wish there were more, but there's still some who say thank you at the end of class, and whether it's aquarium or regular science. And it's so nice. It becomes a routine thing, and I'm sure, you know, they've just learned to say it, which is wonderful. But it's nice picking me up at the end of class, because no matter how that lesson went, no matter how that activity went, they say thank you. So you think, okay, it's all right. You know, we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll attack it again.
It really does make a difference, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. And you talk about teaching. You light up when you talk about teaching. It's obviously a spark for you. What are some of the other best parts about being a teacher?
My colleagues. I'm blessed to be in an incredible department. We're a big department of 9 or 10 folks, and just the collaboration. I mean, you can't. This is something actually I learned teaching middle school, is you can't isolate yourself and stay in your own room. You almost start to become like the kids if you're around them too much, which, you know, has its limits. So being able to collaborate with the other teachers, and we all are so different, but we're good at, you know, using that to our advantage, and you know, kind of capitalizing on everybody's strengths. So yeah, the team, both of the advisors and then our larger department, and really the faculty too. We have a tremendously supportive administration, both at the school and the district level. And so getting to work with them, and you know, even as they transfer around, it's still a small district. We still all know each other, and it's nice to, you know, bump into people at the store and things like that.
So what is the best part, or some of the best parts, of teaching high school age students?
I got this question a lot after I transferred to Cabrillo from VMS. The people at VMS would ask me how I liked it, and it's funny. Middle schoolers and high schoolers are almost a different species. You know, middle schoolers are still trying to just figure out how to be people. You know, there's with teaching middle schoolers, there's a lot of picking your battles. There's some days where you don't get any content just because you're trying to teach them. Just you need to sit in your seat. You know, things like that. Which is, I mean, it has its place. If nobody ever tells them, then they're never going to know. But once you get to high school, in most cases, you can have a conversation with the student, and they're a little bit more tuned in. They can tell when you're having a down day, and you can kind of tell when they are. And so having a little bit more of a relationship with high school students is really neat. Another cool thing with high school that's unique is they're so close to graduating. In a year or 2 or 3, you kind of get that instant gratification of then you see them out after graduating, and they're at college, or you see them. I think I know half of the Taco Bell drive-through in Lompoc. You see them out and about, and they light up. It's funny, even the kids who you thought, oh, they're not going to light up whenever I see them. They're of course your biggest fans after high school. So yeah, just being able to have a conversation with them and seeing them grow up in front of your eyes is pretty neat.
Sounds like relationships for you really do make a difference. Your relationships with your team, other teachers on your staff, the relationships you can build with the older high school students as they're learning from you. And what about relationships with the new teachers? What advice might you give new teachers that are coming up today?
Yeah, after teaching for 6 years, I've actually run into this as a father too. Now that I've had my son is now 4.5. People will come up to me and ask, for advice, and I think, gosh, why are you asking me for advice? I'm brand new at this. But with new teachers, like I said a little bit, it depends on the age group. With middle school, picking your battles. I see teachers burn out because they have to be right on top of every single thing, and it'll wear on you. You kind of have to pick, what you stand for and fight for that, rather than trying to just stand for everything. And also, don't be afraid to rely on other people. Rely on your colleagues. It's okay to beg, borrow, and steal, a little bit. But also, don't feel beholden to what other people are doing exactly. One thing I've found is we all have our own different styles, and we can definitely teach the same content. We can even teach the same activities. But the sooner you can put your own spin on it and your own mark, just like with the students, you develop ownership in it, and you kind of perfect it and make it your own. So don't be, don't just fall in line and think you have to do exactly what everyone else is doing, because maybe you have a new angle that they hadn't thought of. And if you don't bring your own knowledge into it, you were the one who was most recently in college probably. So, you probably have a different angle. And so don't be afraid to speak up and provide your own input as well.
Chris, I can't believe how time just flew by with you, listening about your teaching, listening about the students, the project-based learning, the aquarium, the sharks, the jellyfish. It's just really exciting, and I just want to say thank you for all that you do to contribute to not only Cabrillo and Lompoc, but the community of Santa Barbara County. It's the spark in your eye when you talk about teaching and learning, and your students and your team is truly remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today for Talking with Teachers.